How buju Indinoe Magunadug and Nishnabe and Dow, Makwan Dodane, Minoa King and Donjaba, Anan Indinoe Magunag, O Pasquayat, Hima, Jaganashia King on Jabawag, Anan Dash Agama King on Jabawag, Nin Minoa King and Gi and Dadis, and Gi Natawigama, Minoa King, Minoa Makoons, Indigenous Cause, Apachigo and Winda Mama Yaya and Dajan Dan, Anish Bungi go, Anishnabe King Dasu and Gadajan Dan. Nongo. Ajikwa Inga Jaganashim, Apachigo, Miigwich Bizindawieg. So it's in accordance with the Ojibwe Anishinaabe protocols that I introduce myself to you this way today. According to our teachings, you're always supposed to say to anyone, any group you're addressing, who you are, and you're supposed to give your clan. I'm Bear Clan, and where you're from. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My Indigenous relatives come from the Paw in Manitoba, and I also have ancestry from Europe. A lot from my dad, of course, who's Polish. But I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I was raised there. And you're also supposed to give your names. The short version of my Anishinaabe name is Makoons. So I actually have two first names. I have Makoons and Wendy. In academia, I'm Dr. Wendy Geniusz. I'm a full professor at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, where I teach courses primarily on Ojibwe language, but also Ojibwe language and culture. But my ancestry, because the Paw is a Cree reserve, is actually Cree and Metis. I was just raised with Ojibwe language and culture. Some of my most recent work on this has been creating a bilingual children's book called Remedios Dibaajimind. I'm creating that with my sister, who's an Indigenous illustrator, Wendy Geniusz, and also with Dr. Gordon Jourdain. He's a first language speaker of Ojibwe. I've told the story, or written the story in English, and he's written it in Ojibwe. And it's a really cool story, and I thought I could tell you highlights. It's about my turtle. It's a true story. I have this little turtle, this little being I've had since, I guess, 2003, but Remedios was born around 2001. This little turtle was a male turtle. For most of the time I had the turtle, the turtle's still with me. But first of all, we had got two turtles and they actually had a baby. So Remedios has a biological son. He was the father of the baby. There was a female turtle that laid the egg. So I hatched him in this incubator and it was really fun. So we have Emilio, the baby turtle. Shortly after Emilio was born, Remedios just kept getting sick. So I kept having to take him to vets. And I wanted to make sure that I really have a male turtle because there's a chance maybe the female got pregnant when she was in the pet store or something. He said, yeah, you definitely have a male turtle, Then Remedios started digging holes and pretending like he was laying eggs. He even really was good at tricking us. He'd get rocks he'd find in the ground and they were like egg-shaped and he would push them around in these holes. And I stayed up till midnight one night with this turtle because the turtles, if they have eggs, they have to get them out. So I didn't want to leave, my turtle out in the yard. So I sat up there with my mom and the turtle and, finally I'm like, those are rocks. It took me hours to figure out I was being hoaxed here. So we kept taking him to vets because he kept getting sick. And anyway, the vets would say, yeah, you really have a male turtle. He's just digging holes. Well, one day he was in his tank by himself and I woke up in the morning and there were eggs in the tank, like my male turtle laid eggs. Yeah. So my little Remedios went through a complete gender change and now he's a she. So it's a really cool, awesome story because now she doesn't get sick anymore. She had eye infections and shell infections and things that there was she had really great food. She had great living conditions. Nothing had changed that should have gotten her sick. But clearly when she was going through that gender change, her immune system must have been really down. She was getting sick. Now she isn't sick, thank goodness. And she lays eggs now and she digs holes. But otherwise she's our happy little turtle. So it's become really hard to even talk about this turtle in English because like you can see, I'm kind of stopping when I talk about Remedios. I try to just use the name because we don't know what are her pronouns, right? In English. And that's a thing, right? So we don't, even when, she's hungry, you can't really, you got to choose a pronoun. And even when I talk about her story, it's, you don't know when to change the pronoun because you don't really know when she changed. All we know is there were one reptile expert and two actual veterinarians with degrees sexing a turtle, all three of them all saying it was a male turtle. So we know there was a point where this was a biological male, but clearly the turtle knew that she needed to be a female. So in Ojibwe, it's a gender neutral language. When you talk about the he or she forms, it's neutral. So when you say Buckaday au Remedios, you're literally saying Remedios is hungry, but Buckaday can be he's hungry or she's hungry. There's no gender on it. So it became very clear that the most appropriate way to talk about this little turtle was to do it in Ojibwe. So that's where the idea for the children's book came, that we'd want to tell this turtle story in Ojibwe and in English, because it's a powerful story, I think, especially for young people, for our Indigenous two-spirit kids. This could be really important. And we've had teachers teaching K-12 talk to us about having kids that come out, especially in middle school. Apparently, a lot of children are coming out to their teachers in these situations. So they're really excited about the possibilities of publishing this story so that more people can hear it. Telling it in Ojibwe was really important to us because of the pronouns. And we were publishing a paper with the Algonquian conference papers about our process. Some of that's in the book too. We thought the story could really stand on its own. The publishers are telling us that people aren't understanding the powerful aspect of the story. So we've had having to put this parent-teacher guide in it and explain, because in our culture, the world is, and in many Indigenous cultures in North America, the world is on the back of a Mi'kmaq, of a turtle. And that this turtle, created the world, helped us create the world that we're in. So this little being, Remedios, is now able to teach us, something about this world that maybe not all of us are understanding at this time, or maybe some of us are, but are having great ways to articulate it or something. How do you teach it? So it's a really beautiful turtle as a leader story. Even before this world was created, our first world, the very first one before, there's been multiple recreations, but that first world, the turtle was the first being on the planet. So it's really a beautiful, beautiful thing that it's a turtle that's done this, So when we were writing the Ojibwe version, we weren't just translating. Gordon and I are really telling two stories simultaneously in two languages. So when you're done telling the stories, initially the Ojibwe story doesn't have any gender. It's just about a turtle who has a baby and lays eggs. So that kind of makes sense, right? So he actually had to come up with a way to insert gender into the turtles in the story so that you could understand there was a change. And in English, there were the he, and the she pronouns changed. That was an obvious change. But otherwise, there's never a statement. And then Remedios changed genders like that. That doesn't exist. So it's a really interesting story. To do this, Gordon said he remembered his grandmother talking about turtles and that there were different words that you could say, because Mi'kmaq is a general turtle word, and there was Nujay-Kanak and Abay-Kanak, and people don't usually use those because you don't usually need to gender your turtle, but you can, right? So we had to use those instead of just a general turtle word. So we have Nujay-Kanak for the female and Abay-Kanak for the male. So we had to actually insert those in. And then when we got to the gender of the doctors who were assessing the turtle, that was interesting too, because we decided it was such a really important part of the story. And we actually had a female and a male doctor. So in Ojibwe, Mashkikiwinini is a doctor. It's a male doctor. That's what literally male medicine person is what it literally means, but it's used to describe MDs. Okay. The equivalent is Mashkikiwakwe, which means the same thing, but it is assumed that it is a nurse. Like these are words that are from 100 some plus years ago, right? So it's assumed it's a nurse. So he had to, say, well, we can't use that. This is a female doctor. So in the end, we actually used a gender neutral doctor healer term that also describes our old healers as just one that heals. From the pictures that there's a male and female doctor. If you look at them from the story itself, you don't even have gender on the doctors because you can just say one that does this. And that's throughout our third person in the language. You can always say one who does this, he or she does this, because there isn't a pronoun for the two genders. So yeah, you're great to visit Daoyeg. That was my most recent experience with storytelling.